Wow, that took work. Hello, everybody. I am Dr. Torri J. Evans Barton. I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. It's more than a notion to say all of that in one breath. But I wanted to come on here. It is Healing Tuesdays. I'm excited to see a few people jumping on. And I want to kind of cover this, and I don't want to take all day. I want to get straight to it so that people can go back to enjoying their evening. Hey, Linda, how are you? I tried to do it my normal way on Be Live, and I was having a few issues, more than a few. And so forgive me, I am exhausted. I'm going to tell you why I'm exhausted, because I'm on West Coast time. And so West Coast time tells me it's 6 o'clock, 6:23. But my body is telling me it's something else. And so I'm trying to work through jet lag and being on the West Coast and timing everything to make sure I am keeping up with all of my duties towards the East Coast. So tonight I want to talk about removing the shame from your fatherless journey. So how many of you know what shame is, or how many of you have a definition of shame? If you have some definition, maybe a few words, just type it in for me so I can know what your definition of shame happens to be. Just type it in. Give me just a clue as to what or how you define shame. I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Hey, Charles. Guilt, Linda says. Okay. Okay, that's a good one. Anybody else? How do you define shame? Because I think Linda has a good one, but trust me, there are more out there. And guilt concerning what and who is another conversation. So let me see. Hey, Brian. I see my husband's on here. Let me see. So what do you guys see as shame? I'll give you a few more seconds. Give you like 10 more seconds just to type it in there. Shame. What is shame to you? So when I looked it up earlier, it simply said that shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion typically associated with a negative evaluation of yourself. That was interesting. It's about yourself. Shame. And so tonight we're dealing all with ourselves. We're not dealing with anybody else. We're going to focus on ourselves. Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious, negative emotion associated with yourself. You have withdrawals, feelings of distress, mistrust, powerlessness, and one of my favorites, worthlessness. That's shame. And so when you're walking around here as a fatherless child dealing with shame, there are things that are happening in your life that I don't think you're aware of. Most times we're not aware of how this is impacting our lives growing up fatherless. Good evening, Brian. Oh, wait, I see some people. Okay, Charles said embarrassment about a situation specifically. Yeah, and it's all about yourself. It's all internal. So tonight we're going to do some internal work. We're going to let go of some stuff internally. The impact of shame on your life can show up in several ways, but one of the ways that it shows up is people who live with shame tend to avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community, like being collective. And one of the reasons they do that is because you don't want people to know, so you hide and you self-conceal, and you hide from a community because friendship tends to tell you the truth. Friendship tends to be intimate, intimacy. They can see into you and see the things about you that maybe you don't want anyone to know, that you're ashamed of. And so they avoid vulnerability, and they never share their true selves with the world. How many of you have done that before? How many of you literally hidden yourself and not allowed people to really know who you are? So I can tell you right now, I'm gonna put it in here. One of the ways shame impacts your life is shame causes you to avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community. That's number one. I'm gonna put that in there. So I just typed that in there. Let's see where it went. So I can pin it somewhere. And I think that's important for me to put on here because when you grow up fatherless, there's a shame that's associated with it. I remember, and there's a video on YouTube, I'll probably post it tomorrow, but we would show this PSA called the 64. I don't agree with her statistics as far as 64%, but what I do agree with is the narrative within the PSA. And there was a gentleman who said, I hide, right? So he lifts up his cuff on his jacket and he talks about hiding his shame or hiding, or he's ashamed. And so he hides all of his fatherlessness behind whatever it is he's wearing. He masks it. So when watching that video, after we, started going around the room, we asked the children, how many of you are ashamed of your fatherless journey? And I think one girl raised her hand, but the thing that I do remember the most, maybe one girl raised her hand, maybe, but 100% of the boys raised their hands. Why is that? Why are boys more ashamed of their fatherless journey than girls? And if you look at number one, that tends to be male traits way more than it's female traits. Avoiding relationships, having issues with vulnerability and community. Women will find community, it just may be dysfunctional, right? Women will find a relationship, it just may be dysfunctional. And women will be vulnerable with the wrong people. But men tend to back away from, they don't tend to share. And so when they don't tend to share, it's a sign in many ways that there's some shame associated with it. I also think, when we're walking out our fatherless journey, we are, number two, I'm going to say, we are more prone to suppress our emotions and our feelings. Because for a lot of reasons, shame is associated with suppressing emotions, and that tends to be on the female side. So I don't know, and those are statistics. In my general homegirl movements, I guess, I think we do suppress emotions, but I'm wondering if we suppress them more than men when it comes to this shame. Even reading The Boy Crisis, I'm, very aware and learning, and I need to type this, I'm sorry. I got to multitask on this one. Those who live with shame tend to suppress their emotions. Okay? Hold on, I gotta scroll back up. Because Linda says, I think boys react because of their identity to men and fathers different from girls. I get that. I think a lot of us who are on here are reading The Boy Crisis, and I see Charles saying it as well. I think Dr. Farrell made a good observation about it. I do too. Fatherless girls have a female role model, and fatherless boys don't have the male role model. So that's why they associate more shame than girls when it comes to their fatherless journey. I'm almost done with The Deepest Well, and then I started The Boy Crisis. I can't wait. And then I'll start The Boy Crisis. Yeah, because I get what Charles is talking about. Charles is talking about the fact that growing up in a father-deprived home for boys is more challenging for girls because girls have the female role model and their mother in the home, and boys don't. I've always seen it in this way. Boys and girls are both equally affected by not having their father in the home and growing up fatherless. However, they are impacted differently. And that's something I've said for years. It's not the intention. I don't think the intention is to minimize one over the other. Because even last night I was asked, so you only work with boys? And I was like, no, I work with boys and girls. I do because I genuinely believe that it's necessary to work with both. Are both equally impacted? Yes. It's just different. And I don't want to leverage one over the other because many of us are reading the boy crisis, because we could write a girl crisis. It's just different. And girls have been given tools and things of that nature to be able to navigate fatherlessness and low self-esteem and all these different things through after-school programs, through organizations like mine and Girls Inc. and STEM programs and all of these girl empowerment groups. That's how girls have been able to navigate it differently than boys. And that's why there's a boy crisis and not a girl crisis. And so it's something I've always questioned, like, how do you expect men to be who they need to be when you didn't give them what they needed as young boys, just like you're giving it to young girls? Like, girls are growing up and they're not meeting their equals in a sense because they weren't given the same tool chest. Girls were given the whole tool chest, like everything. You know, you see, I'm dating myself, but you know, you went to Sears back in the day and they had that one tool chest. Some of you men, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. That one that you wanted. It was a bit pricey. Sometimes you had to save up for it. Sometimes you had all the money for it, but it had everything in it. That's the one girls got. And then remember that other one? It was close. It had a few things in it that no, it wasn't even close. Let's just be honest. Boys aren't even getting close to what girls were getting. You had to get that one tool chest that you could afford. And it didn't have half the stuff that the girls' tool chest had. That's what boys are getting. And so that's why I believe boys are dealing with shame and dealing with the fatherless issue much more than girls are. The hardest part of fatherless journey was when my children called me out. My son asked me, Mommy, why do we know Daddy's family but not yours? That hurt more than living it. Oh, I can't stand you right now, Linda. Oh my God. Linda, do you know that's why I went to find my father? Those exact words. And I think my husband might be able to vouch for that if he remembers that. I don't know. But I remember we were engaged at the time. And being engaged, of course, a young lady wants her dad to walk her down the aisle. And then number two, the other part that the young lady, myself, wanted was I didn't want to have children and my children look at his family and know all of that dynamic. But I couldn't even show you a picture of my father. At least my husband had a picture of his father. I had no pictures at all because I didn't know who he was. And that's exactly why I didn't want that moment right there, Linda, that you had. I was like, I'm going to find my father. It's necessary because I'm about to get married. And see, maybe we'll talk about that next week. We need to talk about why finding our fathers are so important. Okay, yeah, I know you didn't know that. Boys have the one for under the sink. Wow. One phrase I hear a lot is fathers need to step up to the plate. Oh, I hate that. Fathers need not to have the plate taken away from them is what Brian is saying. Girl Crisis, the next title written by Dr. Torri J. Charles, cut it out. But Charles, you're so right. Boys have the one underneath the sink. They so do. They don't get the same support and help. And I believe that's why we have the issue we have today. It's not that girls didn't need the help. Girls are getting the help. But for some reason, we're abandoning the boys as if they're not as valuable as the young ladies. Can you define shame? I'm sorry, Michael. I did define it earlier, so let me go back and redefine it for you. Shame is an unpleasant, self-conscious emotion typically associated with a negative evaluation of yourself. It leads to feelings of distress, mistrust, powerlessness, and worthlessness. That's what shame is. That's how we've defined it. And so let me see here. I don't believe the majority really understand the difference between shame and guilt. Yeah, Okay, that's a good one. I agree with how you use the word in context. Well, thank you. That's why we defined it from up front. Although shame has an association with guilt, let me see. Let's see. Let's go ahead and go there. Because I believe the two they're similar, right? It says the fact of having committed a specific or implied offense or crime. So a lot of times shame can be associated with guilt because you've done something, right? But this type of shame that we're talking about has nothing to do with what you've actually done. In a sense, it's been what's been done to you, but you still have to do the work to heal yourself, to move through what it is that you've gone through, and to deal with the issues of shame that are now impacting your day-to-day life, causing you to avoid relationships, vulnerability, and community, causing you to suppress your emotions just simply because you don't want anybody to know what's going on inside of you. And you're wrapped so tight, you've now got things like hypertension. Yeah, you got stuff like hypertension, depression, diabetes is another one, anxiety, worry, and even worse, you've got low self-esteem because of that super hypercritical aspect of yourself. Now it creates low self-esteem within you. So I'm going to type here number 3. Those living with shame tend to have feelings of worthlessness. We said that a moment ago. Depression, anxiety, and low self-esteem. What do you guys think about that? Do you have any of those things? Do you experience any of those things on a day-to-day basis? And I know we're all like, I'm confident, I'm good, right? Are you? I get why we feel that we're good. I get why we feel we're confident. A lot of times that's just us portraying to be something that we're not. Have you ever noticed somebody they're arrogant, they're not confident, and they don't know the difference between the meaning of being arrogant and confident? And so their arrogance really reveals to the rest of the world that they're really in an issue of maybe shame, but they definitely have low self-esteem. Boys without a father are burdened with shame and have no idea. Well, I can tell you right now, Michael, my kids in one of my peer groups back in the day when we asked the question, how many of you walk around with shame? And I can tell you 100% of the boys raised their hand. I will never forget that day. They raised their hands. Oh, Jesus, Linda says, shh, sounds like my boyfriend's baby mama. I'm not getting involved with that today. We'll talk about baby mamas or the mother of your boyfriend's children. We'll talk about that another day. I see bleeding ulcers, heart palpitations, stress-induced illness. Absolutely, Ezekiel. And someday, better than others. Some days, yes. Some days are better than others. Yesterday, I don't know what was going on. I couldn't shake it. I couldn't shake it at all. I'm sorry. I'm trying to get my computer right. I couldn't shake it at all. And in the midst of me not being able to shake it, I was talking to my husband, and one of the things I said to him was, I don't know. I'm anxious. I got something going on. And when I said it, he said, so, and I explained it to him. He said, so you're waiting for something bad to happen? Whew, kind of knocked me out a little bit, because I believe, when you worry and you have anxiety, in a sense, that's what you're doing. And all day, that's what you do, and you can't quite focus on what needs to get done. And so that becomes a thing. And that becomes a cycle for me on those days when it's not so good. And I can tell you, running this business has really caused anxiety to elevate in my life. I don't know why, but it has. It really has. And so I have to meditate, I have to breathe, and I have to be focused on what's really going on versus anticipating something negative going on, because that really says what I think about myself. China says, I grew up very suicidal. See? And this has to do with the subconscious, but yet self-consciousness of our minds as to what we believe about ourselves. And when you grow up without a father, there are just some natural things that you believe about yourself. Do you know anything about suffering soul? Okay, so I want you to describe that a little bit more to me. We may call it something different, so I just want to know what it is that you're talking about, Carlos. Suffering soul. Do I know anything about suffering soul? We'll see. I may, but you may be calling it something different than what I'm calling it. So that's why I want to know. So let's look at shame a little bit more. People who live with shame are likely to take unhealthy risks. Yep. People who live with shame are more likely to take unhealthy risks. So what does that look like? Oops. So what does that look like? A lot of times it's relational. Yep. A lot of times that's drug abuse. You lead and all of those things that are unhealthy for you tend to devalue who you are. You tend to pick the things because of your shame that will cause you to be devalued. The relationships, the drug abuse, the decisions even concerning education and careers. You'll pick the lesser job just because that's how you feel about yourself. You feel unworthy. And when someone offers you a better option or opportunity, you self-sabotage it. That's a serious moment for fatherlessness and fatherless children. You will choose the negative emotion, the negative situation. You will choose it consciously and subconsciously. Depending on where you are on the spectrum, you will choose it. China says self-harming, I still cut myself to feel some release. Wow, China. And so what is the release that you feel from the self-cutting? Because what are you thinking about before that happens that's building up the pressure that you need to cut? So Michael here is talking about fight or flight, cortisol, cortisol hormonal reaction, catabolic process, which tears your body apart. Men are more prone, more severe, and irreversible reaction. So these are all the things that create high blood pressure, hypertension, diabetes. We always talk about the food that we're eating that's causing these things. It's all the emotions. It's all the fight or flight. It's all of those things that are on the inside of you. And that's really the head trash. Someone called it monkey brain the other day. I was like, whoa, I hadn't heard that one. But I call it head trash. And the negative cycles in your mind are the things that create the diseases that we're all experiencing. And that's what we have to be and pay more attention to. China, I want to know, what are you thinking about? What are the issues that you're dealing with beforehand? Linda says, ooh, that's me, unworthy. Never feel accomplished or successful. Come on, girl. I knew what you meant. I knew what you meant, Michael. That's why I said catabolic. The pain within, I feel I'm releasing the bad blood energy from within myself. So while we're dealing with this, because that's all shame. So hopefully I can help you tonight, China, by giving you some tools that will cause you to go from cutting on a regular basis to hopefully eventually stop cutting, because the pain within happens to be a lot of the shame within and all of the things associated with this. And I thank you for tuning in tonight. So hopefully we can get you the help that you need. A lot of times what we don't realize is shame is stopping us from the very thing that we need. Shame is keeping us locked into a cycle. And that's the other part. So we're going to go with number 5. Those who live with shame tend to live within a cycle. I'm going to say it again because I say it all the time. We don't create cycles, we repeat them. And so what cycle are you repeating from your family that God has called you to be the one to crush the cycle, to be the one to destroy the cycle? It's not always easy because the cycles are always going. You watched your parents do it. You know, you watched your grandmother do it. You watched all these people in your family do it, and it seems to be the norm. But it's a cycle. Everything from alcoholism. You've seen people who are alcoholics, drug abusers, all of that. Even those who have other psychological issues, because we tend to elevate drug abuse and alcoholism over maybe hoarding or worry, anxiety, self-sabotaging. They all, to me, tend to go in the same basket because they're all a response and a reaction to the negative emotions and the negative things that are happening in our lives. And so these cycles that we have, you can choose to step out of those cycles. It's going to take some practice, but as you choose to step out of those cycles, you're stepping towards your healing. Remember the scripture in the Bible where Jesus is approaching and he comes up to the gentleman and he's laid there with the bed, right? And he's laid there and God says, take up your bed, rise, take up your bed and walk. And he made every excuse. Like it was like, I don't know if I should go, you know, if I go, you know, and he finally went, but he had all of these other excuses before Jesus arrives. Oh, every time I get up, somebody gets in before me. Every time, blah, blah. And it was this negative cycle that was happening in his life that was keeping him from getting the healing that he wanted. But all he had to do was take up his bed and walk towards his healing at that moment. Because sometimes we get caught up in the day of the week it's in. I'm about to tell myself. We get caught up on the day of the week and did I do this and that, or when can I get my healing? Healing is available to you anytime you choose to walk towards it. Can I say that again? Healing is available for you anytime you choose to walk towards it. It doesn't take all of the stuff that some people say. It's a decision, but it's a decision to do it differently. It's a decision not to allow the things that stopped you in the past from keeping you from moving forward to the thing that you know that you, not only that you want, but you deserve. You deserve healing. Healing belongs to you. Michael says generational legacy, the things you're talking about get passed on. Absolutely. It's intergenerational trauma. And Brian says, I feel like that every day I have to consciously focus to be normal. Come on, Brian. We all have to do that. Because the older we get, the more stuff gets piled on, it seems like to me. So let's talk about how to get out of shame. So the first thing that we talked about tonight is those who are dealing with shame tend to do what? They tend to avoid relationships, avoid community, avoid the things that they need, in a sense, to be whole and complete. So the way that the first way that you get out of shame, I'm going to put this here, number one. I'm going to call it the way out. That's what I'll do. Number one, you do the opposite of what you want to do. You don't want relationships? You have to go seek out relationships. And you have to commit to be vulnerable with not the people you were picking before, safe people. So some of the books that I'm going to suggest to you to read so that you know what's safe. Boundaries is a great book that I love to read. And I want to say that our coach, he had the singles reading a book called, hold on. Yeah, it's called Safe People. Funny enough. The title is How to Find Relationships That Are Good for You. And it's Safe People and Avoiding those that aren't. The book is called Safe People. I'm going to show you the cover. One of the ways that you walk out of shame is you do the opposite of what shame is telling you to do. Shame's telling you not to have relationships. Here, oops. That's the book. Safe People. Shame's telling you not to have a relationship. Shame is saying, they're not, nope, I can't be vulnerable with them. I can't commit to them. You have to do the opposite, because you have to sharpen and strengthen that muscle. You have to sharpen and strengthen the shame muscle so it can go away. It's not easy to do, but it's a part of taking up your bed and walking towards your healing. And it's gonna require you. It's going to require you to have to create a safe space around yourself. And it's going to require you to have to get out of being comfortable. Brian said it earlier. He has to force himself to be what he considers normal, what the world considers normal. You have to focus. You have to drive it home. And so, China, when you're feeling that pain and that shame, I want you to find and create a safe place around you. Groups of people who are safe. You do the opposite. Yes, Michael. Because the safe place is where you're going to be able to not only release the pain, the safe place is where you can release the pain, but you get to do it verbally. You get to do it with your emotions. You get to do it by crying and having someone there who can make you feel like you're valuable, you are worthy. That's what you need in this season. That's what you need to walk out of it. The other part, come on, move out of your head. Get out of your head. I'm going to type these together. Yeah. So I want you guys to have these if you come back. And let me say this. Those who are listening on replay, please type replay so that I'll know that you watched it afterwards. I appreciate everyone who comes on after the fact and shares their comments. It is much needed, and the people who were live get to hear other perspectives. I said, number one, do the opposite, right? Number two, get out of your head. That head trash, that place where it tells you you are a failure. You are not a success. You are a horrible person. And it keeps you in the cycle, right? Because I'm pointing towards your heart, because I know out of the abundance of our heart, our mouths speak. And sometimes our mouths are closed, so it speaks in our minds. And we don't need that. And I need for you, the other part is when you get out of your head, this is what I need you to do. I need you to share with somebody your shame story. I need you to tell somebody why you're ashamed, what you're ashamed about. I need you to share, China, why you're struggling and you have this issue of cutting. Because one of the things I know without question is when you share and when you open up your mouth, you silence the accuser within your own mind. They call at church, how do they say it? Oh gosh, it just went out my head. Tell the truth, shame the devil. That's what you do. You tell the truth and you shame the devil. And so that's what we want to do. China, yeah, see, he said, we do the opposite because it feels stronger. China cuts herself. We need to calm and be in the moment and know everything is okay. Yeah, we need to be calm and know everything is okay. That's what we have to do. So I want you to do the opposite. I want you to get out of your head. I want you to share your story, your shame story with someone. And then once you share it, see, Linda and I have talked about this. She came to I've Got Daddy Issues in Tulsa. And one of the barriers to healing is rehearsing your story over and over and over and over. I don't need you to rehearse your story. I need you to share your story. And once you start sharing your story, you'll be able to share that story from a place of victory. You'll be able to share that story from a place of being an overcomer. But you have to be able to express it. If you're an artist, draw something. If you're a poet, write something. If you're a singer, then write a song. But I need for you to be able to share your shame story, because it takes it out of your head and it presents it to the rest of the world so that others can know. And you don't do that with just anybody. Once again, we need to deal in safe places. We need to deal with safe people. I want you also, this is going to be a hard one for some of y'all. No, we're not talking about toxic mothers tonight. We're not talking about toxic mothers' homes tonight. We are talking about ourselves, because as we go through our fatherless journeys, because we talked about healing father wounds. We've talked about, when dads don't leave and they're forced out last week. That's what we talked about last week. And I know Linda has plenty of information on toxic mothers. I can't lie, I got some on that too. That's not the conversation tonight, because I feel like there's a lot of shame that goes around. And when people have shame, it's expressed differently. And even China admitting tonight some of the challenges she has surrounding her shame. When we are dealing with shame, another way that's going to be hard for some of you that you need to do is I need for you to gain self-compassion. You know how you're super critical? I'm super critical. I can't lie. And I'm super critical on myself. I tend to be that way. And so when we've got all this shame going on and we're dealing with it, how you get out of it, number one, what do we say? You do the opposite of what typically happens. Get into relationships that are safe. Be vulnerable around safe people. Create community around safe people. Number two, get out of your head and share your shame story. Number three, it's time to have some self-compassion. It's time for you to open up and know that hypercritical self in your mind, that's not real. That is an accuser. And most of the time, those are words that have been spoken to you previously by somebody else. Hey, Yolanda, it's been spoken to you by somebody else. Parents have said it, oh, you ain't no good. You ain't gonna grow up to be nothing. You ain't worthy. Boyfriend's breaking up with you, or they cheat on you, or girlfriend's cheating on you, and you associate it with your self-worth. And so then you become super critical. Oh, I'm too fat. Oh, I'm too this. I'm too that. I'm not enough of this. I'm not. And you begin to tear away at yourself. And shame will literally have you in a position where you do not feel good about yourself. That's it, period. So I'm sorry, I'm looking at Brian's thing. I hear you, Brian, hilarious. You've got to know that shame will have you looking at yourself in a mirror where everything's wrong with you. So I want you to have some self-compassion. I want you to look in the mirror and add some positive affirmations concerning yourself. If you had a friend and they were going through the same thing and having feelings, what would you say to them? Those are the things I want you to, because let me go back before I even say what I was just about to say. We will not let our friends go through the things that we go through. We will muster up everything we have to get our friends out of the darkness that they're in, and then we go right back to our darkness. What would you say to your friend who is in a dark place? What would you say to them? Would you give them the love and care? I think you would. You give them the love and care and concern that you need to give to yourself. Those are the things you need to give to yourself. Love, care, and concern. I love me. I care for me. And I'm concerned about me. So when I know that I'm having anxiety, I get very concerned about me. In order to get that situation straight yesterday, I had to take a nap. I had to pray, meditate, take a nap. So I could get, because it was fluttering and I don't like that feeling. I don't like the way it feels. It causes me to be all, so I have to care enough and be concerned enough with me not to keep pushing through. Because that's what we do. Just push on through. No. I'm going to take a pause, a Selah moment, a praise break. And I'm going to deal with me because there's something going on with me that's happening, right? And then the fourth thing that I want you to do, here we go. Because I said, we don't make healthy decisions and we don't take healthy risks. So the fourth thing I want you to do is I want you to take one step towards a healthy risk. That's what dads teach us too. That's why it's hard for us to do it. Dads teach us how to take healthy risks and still live within a boundary, right? Dads teach us Dad tossed me all the way up in the air like that one day. And oh my God, and he caught me. Dad let me do all of this. And then when I got too far, he was like, you're going too far. When mothers are raising children without a father, they don't know the healthy risk boundaries. Because remember when your dad tossed you in the air that high, what did mom do? Because that's not her natural role. Her natural role is not to help you push the boundaries and know what a risk is. So she's like, oh, she's about to die because dad is showing you how to take the risk. And the kid's being thrown up in the air and laughing, coming down. And mom's about to pass out. And then dad probably even gets in trouble for tossing the baby up like that, but he'll do it over and over and over again until he's tired of getting fussed at. But that's how dads teach us how to take those risks, right? And so I need you to attempt something that might actually end up unsuccessful. I want you to take a risk that you know is beyond your gift, your talent, but it's pushing a healthy boundary and allowing you the ability to potentially fail. Because failure is not the end. Failure is just a lesson. It's an opportunity to learn. And so for those who think that failure is the end and it's like, that's it, that's another lie. That's a lie from the pit of hell. You've got to do something more difficult tomorrow than you did the day before. That's what taking a healthy risk is. And until you know what that is, I don't want you to take it. Until you develop a safe place and maybe read the book, Safe People, I don't want you to take that risk just yet. I want you to kind of breathe through the first 3 and get those together so that when you get to number 4, you will know what that really looks like. Okay? And then number 5. Number 5 is simply believing that healing is possible for you. Not for nobody else. Not for the person down the street. Not for your homegirl who you tend to pour all this compassion out for and have love and care and concern for, but for you, that healing is available and possible for you. If you don't believe that, then you're putting yourself in a position where you won't get the healing that you need. You'll constantly talk yourself off of a ledge. You'll constantly talk yourself out of getting what it is you want. Just like the man that I mentioned from the Bible, where he had an opportunity. Every time it started to spin, supposed to be the first one to get in there, right? And he kept missing it. He couldn't get it. Oh man, he would miss it. So he thought that meant healing wasn't available to him. The beautiful part is there's more than enough healing to go around. And so you have to take those steps towards it though. And you have to believe as you're taking those steps that it's possible for you. China, I want you to do these steps because I get that we all have a different response to the pain that we've experienced and the trauma we've experienced in life. And so I applaud you even tonight for sharing the fact that you are a cutter. That's part of you sharing your shame story. And I believe that this is a safe place where you shared it. My prayer will be that you eventually begin step by step walking away from cutting, and you will allow the pain that's on the inside of you to come out in different ways by expression, through therapy and counseling is another great tool. I'm sorry, I use therapy as often as I possibly can. And I use coaching as well. So I'm sure it is, Brian. I'm pretty sure it is because that's on Amazon. So if it's on Amazon, I'm pretty sure that Safe People is in an Audible form. The problem, I think, so often with fatherless children is they don't know who safe people are because they've been brought up by dysfunctional, unsafe, abusive people, neglectful people their entire lives. And what we tend to do is we attract who we are and how we were raised. And so we need to get out of that pattern. We need to break free from that pattern. And how we do that is by doing the opposite of what our natural navigation system would tell us to do. I so appreciate you guys coming on here tonight. Those of you who are just tuning in, I'm Dr. Torri J. I'm the founder and CEO of the Fatherless Generation Foundation. I came on here to talk to you about removing the shame from your fatherless journey, because I know how many men and women, but mostly men, are dealing with shame concerning their fathers being absent from their lives. And tonight, giving you just a few steps and a few tools to help you navigate how to remove it was imperative to me. I saw a couple of other topics that people want to talk about. I'm totally open to that. Even the one about toxic moms, I think that's a great topic to have a conversation about. I don't believe moms intend to be toxic, but I know that there are toxic moms out there. And so we will continue to have these dialogues. We will continue to get on here on Healing Tuesdays and give you opportunities to express yourself and to hopefully learn something that you didn't know before that will give you the ability to be healed. That's what Healing Tuesday is about. China, you are truly welcome. And you can inbox me anytime if you have any questions. I see it and then another person sees it, but they'll always get it to me. So I just want you guys to know that I don't take it lightly when it comes to coming on here and talking to you. I try to be totally led by my spirit as to what the topic needs to be for this evening. And continue to inbox me topics that you'd like to talk about. I'll try to remember the ones that are on, that are listed here, and that way we can continue to incorporate them. Just know every Tuesday night at 9 o'clock. Tonight I got on a little late. My computer, please pray for the healing of my computer. It is a little slow. They did tell me that I would have to get another MacBook Pro soon, which is, pray for the healing of my computer until I can do that. But yeah, it's been a little slow in getting on. I had to reboot it and do all these different things. But I'm here and I'm on because I know how important it is to do what you say you're going to do and be a part of a community that can help you through the challenges that you have. China, you are welcome. You are worthy of the healing, and you are worthy of the information more than anything. Right? And so I look forward, totally look forward to hearing your testimony concerning this journey. Brian says, this is the first time I've watched your video on my own device. I see why Linda holds you in such high regard. Wonderful video. Looking forward to next week. Oh, so you will be, Brian, are you coming to Vegas on Friday? Or you're going to tune in next Tuesday? I get that you're going to tune in next Tuesday, but are you coming to Vegas? And next Tuesday, you guys pray for me as well, because I will be testifying in a case concerning custody and relocation in Pennsylvania Tuesday morning. Yeah, Tuesday morning. And then I'm full of the jet lag. Because I've been on the West Coast now since Friday. Yeah, since Friday. And I'm now just getting accustomed. So I will be on the West Coast for almost 2 weeks by the time I get back to Philadelphia. And go from there. Okay, so I will meet you in Vegas. Okay, I'm excited. I know Linda, she's already inboxed me. She even tried to call me. Linda, I didn't get to talk to you about that, but I did see it. So we'll talk about her first speaking engagement this past Saturday. Fantastic. You did an awesome job sharing your story. And that's a part of what we're talking about, sharing your shame story. Once again, I'm Dr. Torri J. I hope this was of value to you. And I look forward to seeing you guys next Tuesday night. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.